All right, welcome to lesson 1.8. In this lesson, we are going to talk about the coordinate plane and plotting points within a coordinate plane. Now, this is something that some of you have maybe done before, and for others of you, it might be brand new. If you've done this before, then great, this will be a little bit of a review, and if it's new, then hopefully it'll introduce it to you. But we are going to, in this next unit, be plotting a lot of points. In fact, you will probably be plotting thousands of points over the next couple weeks, and so it's very important that we're all on the same page with the same vocabulary and understanding how to do this. So the first thing we need to define is, what is the coordinate plane? A coordinate plane is formed by the intersection of a horizontal and vertical number line. So go ahead and pause the video real quick to make sure you have that definition written down. The next thing we're going to do is label the parts of a coordinate plane. So you can see that we have our vertical and or horizontal number line, and those each have names. The horizontal number line is what we call the x-axis. The vertical number line is called the y-axis. It's important that you know the difference between those two. It's a little bit silly, but the way that I always remember is that the y-axis forms the bottom of the y there, and that's how I remember the difference between the x and the y-axis. All right, now when we have those two number lines, you can see that it divides our graph into 4 sections, and we call those quadrant. The prefix quad means 4, and so we number those quadrants. Quadrant 1 is where the two number lines are positive, and then we move actually in counterclockwise to name the rest of them. So this is quadrant 2, then we have quadrant 3, and finally quadrant 4. And it's important that you know the number of each quadrant, because when we talk about points and where they're located, we will often refer to what quadrant they are in. The last part of a coordinate plane that is important for us is what we call the origin, and that's where the two number lines meet. It's the point called 0, 0, which we'll get into more in just a little bit, but that is called the origin because whenever we plot points, that's always going to be our starting point. So make sure you get all of those parts labeled before moving on. All right, so points on a coordinate graph are always named or represented using an ordered pair. And in an ordered pair, the first number is what we call the x-coordinate. And the second number is the y-coordinate. So when we write an ordered pair, we always put it in parentheses, and so the first number is the x-coordinate, the second number is the y-coordinate. You can remember that goes in alphabetical order, so it looks like x, comma, y. And it's important that when we give coordinates that we always put them in parentheses. So the first thing we're going to do is give the coordinates of point A. You can see point A there on the graph, and we know some things about point A. So point A is 2 units to the left of the origin. We mentioned the origin earlier, and the origin is this point 0, 0, and that is always my starting point when I am plotting points. So point A, you can see, is 2 units to the left of the origin and 3 units up. Notice we move first along the x-axis, that means right or left, and then second along the y-axis, up or down, and that's because the first coordinate is x, the second coordinate is y. So you always move right or left and then up and down. So the x-coordinate is -2, the y-coordinate is 3, so we would say that point A is located at the point -2, 3. And notice they already had them there for you, but those parentheses are important. Point B, we would say, is 4 units to the right of the origin. Again, we start at the origin, and 1 unit down. Now, notice we have a number line here. So we're very familiar with the horizontal number line, maybe not as much with the vertical number line, but we know that on the horizontal number line, when we move to the right, that's positive. When we move to the left, that's negative. So because we moved to the right, that would be positive 4. In the previous example, because we had moved to the left, that was why it was negative 2. On the vertical number line, if you count up, that's positive. That's why on the last one, when we counted up 3, that was positive 3. On this one, we are then counting down, and so this would be negative 1 since we moved down 1. So B would be located at the point 4, negative 1. Again, make sure you have parentheses around that point. So based on what we just talked about in the last 2 examples, why don't you pause the video real quick and try to give the coordinates of C, D, and E. Now check your answers and see how you did. One thing that's important to note is that the order matters greatly. For example, if you had said that point E was located at negative 4, 2, that would be wrong. Even though you have the correct numbers, you have them in the wrong order, and the order makes all the difference because remember, the first number tells you how much you moved right or left. The second number tells you how much you moved up or down. So if you had said that E was located at negative 4, 2, that would actually be up here, which is not where E is located. So this cannot be correct. It has to be at 2, negative 4. The order makes a big difference. Also notice how I wrote all of my points with parentheses around them and a comma in between. Now in this next section, we're going to do the opposite. They're going to give us the ordered pair and we are going to plot the point on a coordinate plane. So it tells us that point A is located at 2, 3. Remember the origin, where the 2 intersect at 0, 0, is always your starting point. So if it's positive 2, I would move to the right 2. Then positive 3, I would move up 3, and I would put my point right there. Notice that I am counting the lines, not the boxes. So you count over 2 lines, up 3 lines, and where 2 and 3 intersect, that's where this point goes. Because we're going to be putting more than one point on this graph, we want to make sure we label which is which. So I'm going to put a little A next to that to show that that's point A. Point B, it wants me to put at negative 4, 0. So because the first number is negative, I'm going to move left 4. Again, I'm counting over the lines, not the boxes. And the second coordinate is 0, which means I am not going to move up or down any. And so this point would go right there on the x-axis, and I'm going to label that point B. The last one, C, is at 1, negative 3. So because the 1 is positive, I'm going to move to the right 1. And because the 3 is negative, I'm going to move down 1, 2, 3. And so this point right here, I would label as C. Now, if you notice in the directions, it told you to plot the point, which is what we've just done, and also to describe the location. Now, when we describe the location, we're either saying if it's on the x-axis or the y-axis, or which quadrant it's in, or it could be at the origin. Okay, so let's remember our quadrants. This is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I would encourage you when you're doing your homework to make sure that you're looking back at your notes so that you have those quadrants numbered correctly. So A would be located in quadrant 1, and make sure you write that out, don't abbreviate it. B is actually not in one of the quadrants. It is on the x-axis. Remember, the horizontal axis is the x-axis. And the last point, C, would be located in quadrant 4. So make sure you read the directions carefully. If it asks you to do two things, make sure you are both plotting the point and describing the location of the point. Now I want you to pause the video and try to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Try to plot each of those points in the coordinate plane that they gave you. Make sure you label which one is D, E, F, and G. And then also try to describe the location. Say what quadrant it's in or what axes it's on. Now, check your answers with mine. Make sure that you have not only plotted each point correctly, but also that you have described each location correctly as well. All right, good job with this lesson.